All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our December monthly virtual career series. We are so excited to have you here with us this evening. We have a very exciting session with Shamara Carney, who is the head of brand at Altro. So she's going to be covering a topic that is very dear to all of our hearts in communications. It's careers in branding, communications, and PR. So throughout this session, we are going to hear from Shamara telling us her career journey, and then we definitely want to make this interactive. So please raise your hand and come off video and ask a question live, or jump it in this chat, throw a question in the chat, and we'll make sure to read that question and come back to you. So we've scheduled this from 6 to 6:45. If you guys have lots of questions, we can certainly go over, but want to be respectful of your time. And we are recording this session, so it will be available for replay on the Comm Department website as well as the YouTube channel. So we'll be sharing that in emails to you guys after the event and also in the chat. I'll put those links in there in the chat. Just make sure you please ask questions, and we're very excited to hear from Shamara. And let me just share with you the next schedule, just so everyone can see what's coming up. And let me move to the next slide here so you guys can get a sense of, we've covered, this series just started in October. It runs through May of next year. And let me just move this out of the way here. Kyle opened up with advertising and journalism. Then we had Jonathan in November talking about careers in finance. And so Shamara is again addressing communications. And so please save the date for January 11th. Allison is the VP of Events and Business Development at the LA Sports and Entertainment Commission. So she's going to be covering all aspects of event marketing. And then in February, our very own Jennifer Cruz, who's a Comm Council member, is the Vice President of Internal Communications. And in addition to covering internal comms and employee engagement, she has a really exciting topic around finding a career choice and how you can really, help find that job that you really are looking for. And she has lots of great advice on that. And then finally, if you guys can follow us on Instagram at UCSB Comm Alumni, we have a private LinkedIn group. So please find us at the Department of Communication. That's for alumni and students. And we post jobs and all sorts of great networking there for you. So please request to be in that group. And of course, we're also on Facebook and Twitter. So I will now stop share and introduce formally Shamara. So just to go over her bio so everyone is aware, she is currently the head of brand at Altro. She has experience in marketing and public relations for multicultural audiences, previously representing companies like Nike and Blue Cross Blue Shield California. Shamara's experience in entertainment publicity adds a unique voice to the fintech space. That's the financial tech space that she's in. Very, very exciting space. Shamara received her master's in strategic public relations from the University of Southern California after receiving her bachelor's in communication at UCSB. Shamara strongly believes that without the support and motivation she received at UCSB, she would not be where she is today. And she wants to do her part in providing the same experience for other UCSB students and alumni. And we are very grateful that you are doing that and joining us today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Shamara. Thank you.
Thank you for the warm introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you guys the slides. Everyone see it okay? Yep. Okay, well, yeah, I don't need to go into what my name is. You obviously heard that. Shamara. I went to UCSB 2014 to 2018. I lived at Tropicana del Norte my freshman year because I was on a full-ride scholarship for track and field, and they kind of just threw most of the athletes into those dorms. So I was really on that side of campus most of the time, straight from the track to my dorm. And then I was doing Chem and bio at the time, which is a lot different than what I am doing now. And that journey was really solely because when I was little, I always told myself I was going to do something that was secure financially, something that, was helping people, but wasn't like something that was, comms seemed like it was a little too unknown for me. My mom did finance. My dad did accounting, tax preparation, stuff that's just like has to be there. And I didn't want to do any of that because I hate numbers, but I was like, I somehow can get past that and still be good at being a doctor. I don't know why I thought that would work, but the not liking numbers was very well correlated to me not being great at science as well. So I found out quickly that that was not my path. And I was really kind of lost in figuring out what it was I wanted to do. But I knew I could communicate with people really well. And I was really good at building relationships. Outside of track, I was always, kind of asking people what they're doing and figuring out what careers they were getting into. And people just seemed to really know what it was they wanted to do, whether it be finance or Comm or whatever it was. And I was just like, I'm not quite there, but let me just try a few things out. So I tried psychology, which I loved, but it just still was a little too close to science for me. So I was like left on the drawing board and I went to Comm. I went to the intro to Comm and I really loved it. And I was like, I'm going to keep trying this out. And I was a little bit, everyone says there's a few weeder classes in the intro to Comm area. And I was a little scared because of that. But for some reason, the academic challenges I had in Chem and bio, it was complete opposite in Comm. I was kind of excelling way faster than I had ever done at UCSB. The grades were literally a complete 180. It was crazy how well it just clicked. And I knew that had to be pursued. So that's kind of my whole journey at UCSB. And when I discovered that, like I said, I graduated in 2018. So that date of January 2017 being my first actual brand position is there for a reason. It was that late because I hadn't figured it out yet. So I was still doing all those intro classes, figuring out what is that angle to comms that I want to take. Because I think in a previous Comm Career Day, it was mentioned that comms, the one good thing about it is that there's a lot of good things. One of the good things about it is that you can do a lot of things with a comm degree. It goes from PR to marketing to brand to just so many things. And there's so many different disciplines, but because of all that, it was hard to tell, where do I go first? Do I go for a marketing internship? Do I go for a brand one? You're just kind of lost, as you might be experiencing now. There's just a lot of options. So I did, I think it was a career fair that I went to on campus, and there was a former alumni that made an app called The Catch, which was actually a dating app. And she was looking for campus ambassadors, and it just seemed like something that was a lot of learning opportunity. There was no real, this is what you're going to be doing every day. And that excited me because I really like to be able to kind of craft what I do. And she was giving me the freedom to do that. She was like, however you get this many people to sign up for the app, however you get it, it's up to you. You have to propose to me this plan, but I'm not going to tell you that you have to do it one way or another. I just need you to get this growth. It could be guerrilla marketing, it could be social media, it could be anything, but just here's the metrics you have to get. Here are your KPIs. And she was just going through all that process of I know what I want the goal to be, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. And I'm kind of going to let you go and be free. So it was very open-ended, but which would scare some people. But for me, that's kind of what I thrive in, is when I'm able to kind of just take it and say, this is the creative way in which I'm going to do it. So that was a very interesting first experience. The app didn't last that long because she didn't get funding in the rounds and things like that. Startup life is a little bit rough. But it was a very good experience for me because I ended up having a good amount of things on my resume from just one experience in just 3 months. So I was able to get my first experience with a startup that was actually downtown. They're called Cleverific, and they still are there now. They make apps for Shopify stores to perform well. So any store that sells on Shopify has to use multiple apps in order to make their shop actually work, to do things like returns, to do things like reviews, testimonials, all those things. There's different apps inside of it that make it work. And the CEO co-founders were the ones that were my boss, and they were just really good coders, and they knew how to do all the technical stuff, but they had no way of marketing to other businesses so that they would use their apps. So I was doing all of the marketing. I was doing the B2B marketing. I was doing blogs. I was calling the store merchants and telling them about the products. I was asking them for surveys and focus groups and things like that to figure out what it is that they look for in these apps. And it was really challenging because it wasn't letting me do the creative side of marketing that I love. It was more of, it's B2B. So with B2B, business to business, it's a lot more of industry knowledge. It's a lot of knowing like what the merchant wants to hear as opposed to what you would think consumers want to hear. So it's a little bit different than my normal style of marketing. I wasn't out there talking to people and selling things. I was really just asking them what would make their shop work better. So it was cool. It was a good experience. I think everyone should kind of get out of comfort zones this early on in their career when you're doing internships. So it was that for me. And it was a perfect timing because it was only going to last through the summer. So it kind of was like a good in-between internship experience. And I told myself, sorry, is there a question or just feedback? I think it's good. I don't want to echo, but I told myself I would try different industries to figure out what I wanted, just like I did with majors. I was like, let me try this out. Let's see what industries I really want to do. Because not all marketing is just this glamorous, like, oh, I'm going to go straight to Apple and be a marketer for one of the top brands in the world. Sometimes you have to do these smaller positions with less known brands to actually get in the weeds and do the day-to-day work that you may not get a chance to do if you go to a company that's fully established. After that, I actually had to get an internship or job that was on campus because once school's back in after summer, I was an athlete full time as well. So I have to work. I have to be closer to campus. I have practice. I had 5:30 a.m. weightlifting, and then I would have classes, and then I would have 2 p.m. practice as well. So I had to have a very flexible internship schedule. And on-campus internships are a great idea if you have to be flexible because they're understanding. They know you have class, and you also can go to them in between classes, which is convenient because you can just walk to the office, go there, do the work. And it's usually with internships in marketing, I was finding that I can do most of my work at home anyways. So you're ahead of the curve on that work from home force. But if you want to do something that's a little bit more flexible, I would say look for the jobs on campus. I'm not sure what it's called now, but the on-campus job board was where I found this one with the Department of Geography and Sustainability. It was the food. Now I'm forgetting what it was, but it's in FNBS, and it's an internship where they let you do marketing, and if you're into graphic design, you can do that solely. And it's also events and event marketing as well, because you are going and setting up the food banks on campus, as well as going onto the nearby grad housing facilities. So some of those apartments that are nearby, I believe they're called Anacapa, and I'm having bad memory now, but all of those apartments around campus that they have food banks there as well. And you set up and you kind of educate the people who live there on like food insecurities and how to make sure that you're eating healthy. You're doing it with low-income families, you're doing those things as well. So it was really cool to be able to not only do the marketing for it, but you also get to like fully host an event around things that really matter. So I always say that I was one of my favorite internships that I had, and I was able to do a lot. And I also built a pretty good portfolio from that because they let you do most of the designs yourself. And you get access to Photoshop, InDesign, all of those things that you should kind of get to play around with at some point in your career. If you want to be in marketing, you get access to that through that internship. So then I actually I had like a couple of classes and a couple of spaces to do a little more units that were just interest. And I wanted to do research with Professor Gibbs because I had 2 of her classes and then 1 with her husband. And I really was just like, I loved them. They were probably one of my favorite professors. And they definitely told me that they were doing research, but I wasn't sure what it was about. And I found out it was about organizational comm and comms and groups. And I was just really a nerd when it came to group comms. So I wanted to know what that was all about. And I also knew that doing research with professors gives you that like a little bit more of that like one-on-one time to figure out what you want to do. You can talk to them about how they got to their position. You could talk to them about if they did any work before they became a professor, about the industry, things that you may not get to ask when you're in class. It's kind of like an extended office hour because you get it every week. So that was a great experience for me as well. And then moving on, after college, because I kind of found the comm like major and all the internships a little bit later, in my opinion, in my college time, I thought that I needed a little more like direction on what I wanted to do with it. I mean, I don't ever tell someone you should or shouldn't go to grad school. I think it's definitely a very personal decision. And especially if I would have like had a little more internship experience, or at least did maybe one PR experience, or, I had little things that I still wish I could have had done when I was in Santa Barbara, but I didn't do it. And I didn't have the opportunity to. So I thought that was the best option for me, is going to school for that specific discipline and just learning a little bit more about what it is that discipline really is beyond what I thought I knew. And so I did some research, and I started that research my junior year about like kind of what degrees were out there. So there was comm degrees that were a little bit more research based, and I already kind of feel like at UCSB, you get that, that you get the very research heavy side of comms. So I didn't really want to pursue that further because I felt like I've gotten it. But I wanted a little more of the industry knowledge, learning from professors that may not just be professors, but they're also working in the industry now, and getting a little bit closer to what you would actually be doing in work. So I think that USC is a really good school for that, especially because of the location of it being in LA. You get some experience on the ground, and you get to meet some of the people that you would be working with. So I did research, and I actually applied there, NYU, and randomly the London School of Economics, the communications one, and very random. That was like, if I wanted to completely change my life, I had like a moment, maybe I just want to like leave the country for a while and come back, but I didn't. I got a little scared once I got in. So once I got into all three, it was kind of like deciding which one. I originally said New York, again, because I just wanted to change, but then I just met a couple of the professors at USC, and I knew that was the right fit. So I did that and did a sports PR position there, which was like an internship that they do on campus for the sports information department, which is basically sports PR. And I do suggest that you do that if you ever have had a thought of being in sports PR, because it shows you the pretty and the ugly of it all. So if you really do have a passion for that, you probably fall in love with it in that position, because despite it being a college athletics program, it's USC, so it's very much ran like pro sports. It's crazy how much you do with, ABC, CBS, and all these things, and it's taken very seriously. So it's not just like any sports PR at a college. It's definitely the real deal. So I learned that that's not the path I wanted to go into, but some people that you might learn that it is. So that is my internship experience. And I think that's the big part of what you guys need to take from it, is that you kind of will hop around a bit when you're doing these internships and these, first experiences, because you need to learn what it is you really want to do, rather than assume that you're going in one direction and find out too late in the game that you don't want to do that when it's actually a full-time position as opposed to internship, which is a little easier to move from. Once I was in LA and actually had to pay a very high rent, I realized that the internships were not going to suffice when it comes to that. So I looked for full-time positions, and LeGrand Communications is a multicultural comms firm in downtown LA. That's where I got my experience working with brands like Nike and Blue Shield and all of those corporate clients. For them, we usually pitched to the the publications. We pitched their, Black and brown executives and getting their stories about their accomplishments. So a lot of it was kind of sounds boring, but it was a lot of executive communications with like people like Forbes and things like that, just trying to get coverage on how much they had people in the C-suite that actually were diverse, as opposed to most corporations at their size not really matching up to their numbers there. So that's kind of like what they were trying to get coverage about, and that's what that was. I loved that experience because I actually was pitching things on my own, and I didn't think I was going to, because I was hired as like a coordinator, special associate, but kind of got thrown into the water, did a lot, learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of, important meetings that I bombed and didn't know what to do in. But I think, although I still look at it as one of the most stressful positions, I feel like that's where I would learn how to actually do the work, as opposed to just learning what the work was. Because in grad school, I learned what it was, but that was when I was like, oh, you need to know more than the definition of PR. You got to actually know how to do this stuff. So I think it's always good to have one experience that doesn't go super perfect, but that you actually learned a lot from. I took a little bit of a pivot and thought that maybe I wanted to make my own comms firm, or an LLC that I did comms for and consulted for, because I was feeling like I was getting like quite a lot of little clients from people I've just known at USC, people who are looking for, a press release here or a social media consultant here. So I thought maybe I should just do this on my own. It didn't come as fast as I thought it was in terms of like enough clients to keep it going all by myself. So I decided to go back and work at an agency. So I worked at Social PR, and that was when I tried my entertainment routes, which was pretty fun. Being a publicist is all the things that, you would think it is. You go on the red carpets, you go to the Emmys, you go to all these places. You stay there for about 9 hours and you're standing the whole time. So there is obviously the downsides, but it's definitely cool to do when you're first living in LA, and it was a very cool experience. Like I said, I treated it like majors. I tried out a lot of different things to figure out what it was that I really wanted to stick with. I didn't like how materialistic it was, how kind of like fake it was. The stuff I was pitching, the stories I was having to tell were not things that really I would even want to write about. So it was really hard for me to try to pitch it to journalists as important stories. But I just kind of kept doing it because it was paying the bills. And then I got approached by my current boss to make a press release for his app that was called then Credit Starter. And he said, I have an app that builds people's credit using their subscription payments. All you do is sign up, you use the app, and you tell us what subscriptions you pay for, and we report it to the credit bureaus. We've got some really cool investors, but I don't know how to tell the news reporters about the fact that it's happening, and I need some exposure because we're trying to get into this thing. It's an incubator called Y Combinator, and we're trying to get into it, but we need some press and we need some press releases. So I decided to do that job, but it was just the consultancy then. So he was he was paying me $1,000 a month. And I was obviously still had to work because that wasn't enough money for my rent. So I did that in addition to my job. And over time, I just started doing more and more. It was one press release, then it was this, and then it was graphic design, and then it was, can you define your brand? And it just kept being more. And as he raised funding, he gave me more money. So then he was like, can you be a full-time PR person for us? And that's kind of like how it grew into what it is today. So it was a lot of hopping around, but that's how I got to where I am. And it's actually a position that I actually am passionate about because we're actually helping people and doing things that are better in the world, as opposed to telling someone about a new movie that just came out. So yeah, that's my long-winded story about that. The grad school experience, this is a class that I had that's called Entertainment PR actually. And that teacher was the reason that I tried entertainment PR. There was a really cool thing that they did at the school where, in his class, where he does a pop quiz, and the top 5 scores of that quiz get to go with him on the red carpet to the Emmys and do hold up the cards for the photographer, the stuff, the assistant stuff. You get to do that for the day, for the daytime Emmys, and then for the night, for the regular service Emmys, which was really cool. So that's things in the pros that I mentioned. It's you have professors that are pretty well connected, because if you are really passionate about certain industries, all you have to really do is find that one professor that is in that industry. Most likely they're really well connected. And if you play your cards right, do your good on your grades, keep talking to them, ask questions. They usually will bring your name up in the rooms that are important. So I think if you have, like I said, had a little, uncertainty about what direction you want to go into in an industry, but you do know for sure that you want to do that industry, I would say to do grad school is a good idea to get those connections and kind of get it going. The one big con is the money, as I put there. I have student loans, and all of the news about them I'm always, my ears like wide open about it. Is it forgiven? Is it not forgiven? And so if you don't want to have that stress, I don't suggest grad school. So that's my grad school piece. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about what it is branding is, like why I like doing what I do now, as opposed to kind of just marketing. So branding is the process of giving meaning to a company. And I think that sounds grand, but I feel like that is exactly what it is. You can't really have a successful company without a true brand identity. And that's made of 3 parts. So brand definition, brand identity, and brand experience. So for us, it's obvious, we know what we are doing. We are building credit. But it's like our mission statement can't just be like Ultra builds credit. So we thought about saying something a little bit more like bigger than that. Mission has to be something it sounds like it's almost, mission and vision both should be something that sounds a little bit crazy, but that is making a real change. So we made ours, we are here to bring financial power to all, which is a big grand statement about what is financial power. Financial power is that access, it's that freedom, it's independence, it's that feeling of I don't have to worry about things. We want to bring that to all. So that's bringing a meaning deeper than just we build credit to a company. And that's why I think brand is just such a powerful career, because you feel like you're actually not only helping to market the company, but you're actually telling people what it is they should believe about the company. So that's why it's made up of all 3 of these things, as opposed to just being PR and marketing. PR and marketing is a piece of a brand and of branding. The rest of it, like brand experience, it makes up things like the user experience, the user interface on an app. It'll be the customer service, things like if the app costs money, like ours is free, some people might cost. So that's part of the whole brand experience. And then for things that are consumer driven, it'd be things like products, packaging. If an example that I used earlier, Apple, their brand is why you buy the iPhone. We might say, oh no, it works really well. But at the end of the day, if you put it together with the Android and an iPhone, there's a lot about an Android that works better than an iPhone, if we're being honest, but they're not Apple. They're not the Apple brand. And that is why I love this job, because you can create a brand that's so strong that no matter what you create after that, whether it be the app version, or maybe we're going to make a YouTube or whatever, they're going to watch that. They're going to follow that next product as well, because they believe in you and they believe in the brand. So you're creating an identity and a who to what the brand is. So that's why I think this career is like, I love it, basically. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of an example of what our brand process was and what it is we identify as visually. So this is our visual ID. Ultra actually literally means other in Italian. So we like to think of ourselves as the others. And it's like we talk about how there's a lot of people that are out of the system and unseen in the financial system because of how the inequities were just built in the beginning with like big banks, how they leave out a lot of minorities and things like that. Sorry, we don't really say minorities, but yes, well, they leave out a lot of people. So we like to say that Ultra, the others, we are credit building for the others, the people that are usually left out. And then the Ultra sign, it's like that A is actually a ticker. So it's like actually like pointing up, which is like the upward of your credit score. So we use it in a lot of different ways, and it's like recall. So we use it with our credit score in the app. When we show you your credit score, we put a ticker on the top. So it's like our branding will always show up, even without the full word mark. So it's a very big, repetitive thing that we do to make sure it's Ultra. And that's ad expressions. So that's an example of what an ad would look like in social media. And usually they would have like a download the app now, but that's just an example. So this is just an idea of branding. Branding is visual as well as verbal. which is the part of it that I was talking about earlier. So for example, there's descriptions, like that's our full description versus a small description. And then you also would define what your tone would be. So we really like to say that we speak and communicate off of these brand pillars of brave, bold, relatable, accountable, valuable, and empowering. So that defines how we show up verbally in any way, on social media and in person when our CEO speaks. Everywhere we show up bold, relatable, accountable, valuable, and empowering. So these are things that make up your verbal brand. You also have a passionate and strong voice, straightforward, clear, speaking with emotion and empathy, beacon of positivity. We want to really come off as we see you, we are with you, we are you, like we really understand our people. And then with brand verbal, you also will have what you would put on there would also be like what you would say versus what you wouldn't say. So use more of, use less of. Like I said earlier, we like to say unseen and uncounted instead of minorities and credit invisible. It's just giving a more empowering verbal identity to people. So that's kind of how you shape a brand. It's all those things visual I showed you, colors, logos, typography, all of those things, in addition to your verbal ID, which is how you would be marketing, how you would show up in PR, all of those things as well. And then I just wanted to kind of like throw in like what I would think my top 3, like career and just my journey, what I've learned. Sorry, I'm covering them up for myself. So I think that building genuine relationships is beyond just for PR, like which is PR, technically that's what you do. But I think when you're networking and things like that, it's great to show up and talk to people, get their LinkedIn and get their email, and hopefully like maybe if they can somehow help you in the future, reach out. That's one part of it. But I think the biggest part of it is keeping it genuine by really actually interacting with them more regularly. So I like to always comment on people's LinkedIns when they're updating. If you could get their Instagram, it's just a little more personal. So you're just like actually always having touch points with them beyond just when you need them. It comes off way better. And that's how I've gotten people to end up referring me to other companies or referring me to people and being like, oh, I know someone who does that. Even if I'm not looking for a job, it's really nice to know that people are still bringing my name up in rooms because of the genuine relationships that I built with them. And they know that I would do the same for them at any point. And that's another part of it, is always being able to like remember people when someone says they need something, like, oh, I need someone who's good at graphic design. If that's not you, but you did meet someone at a networking event that loves doing that, try to remember to bring them up in the rooms too. And that builds those real genuine relationships that are the networks that really, really work for you, as opposed to just having a lot of connections on LinkedIn. And then my second piece is show and tell. So I think like this goes for resumes, this goes for just in general, when you're talking about what you've done, you can't, yes, you should be able to say what it is you've done, but you need to have some type of form of results to show for that. And I know a lot of people have said that about resumes, creating resumes, to always add the metrics as well, but it's really important to do that. I used to have a very beautiful resume that I made on InDesign. It was very cute, but I didn't have any metrics on it. And that was like one of the biggest things I learned. One time at the USC, actually, like I kind of got it tore apart by one of my professors. And it just was they just simplified it all the way down, black and white, and it's just straight, just metrics for every job that I've done, what I did, how I grew social pages, how many people I reached out to, all those things, like numbers. They want that more than anything else. So definitely just results matter. No matter what, you can be great at making a resume, but you have to have the results to actually back it up. And then my third one is more just professional advice. Know when you don't know how to do something, because it will come out soon if you don't admit when you don't know how to do something. So for me, I work at a startup, so a lot of it, they just assumed I knew how to do almost everything in marketing because they were very tech focused. So they were just like, you're a marketing person, right? Here, can't you just do all of it? And I had to be very, very frank with them about what I didn't know, because otherwise you can ruin a relationship and an opportunity like that because you tried to say, oh yeah, I can do it, and then you don't deliver, and there goes that relationship. And I think that's how I've still been with the company this long through all the series and rounds of funding. I've always been very genuine about what I could and could not do. And I was clear, and I was very knowledgeable about what my limits were and what I could, like what I couldn't do. I always had someone or something that was a solution to get there. So I think that's like my main top three things. And then I just added a slide. I just added a slide here that just has a list of resources. So the books that I put here, Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday, I actually just finished that one. I went to a marketing convention about 4 months ago, and he was actually there as a guest speaker. It sounded very intense, Discipline is Destiny, and the book looked very like, I don't know, it just didn't look like a book I would like. And it was very textbooky, it seems like, but it just teaches you mindset changes that you can make to make sure that you kind of stay disciplined. And I don't know, most of you might have heard of Atomic Habits. I read that as well. That one's a little less intense if you want to get into that mindset shifting type of, arena before you go to Discipline is Destiny, because it's a little more like intense, and it's telling you to kind of cut things off and change things. That it's pretty intense. That's a big word. I can't say it enough. It's a very intense book. Radical Candor is a good one if you are looking to ever be into leadership roles, because this just teaches you how to properly give constructive criticism in a way that will not only help that person, but help yourself as well, and teach you something about what you could learn from their mistakes or their missteps. So I love that book. My CEO actually gave it to me, and I suggest it to anyone who's ever, even if you think you're far away from leadership, it's a very good book just to get into that mindset of being a good leader. The last one is more practical. That one is good for copywriting and kind of just learning how to like make your sentences more succinct and more like to the point, as opposed to long and kind of saying the same thing over and over again. And that was actually a professor at USC, Freddie Nadger. He is an adjunct professor, and he's also always writing blogs about the copywriting. So if you want to follow him on LinkedIn, that he has those there as well. Grad school advice, a former gaucho, she was also on the track team at UCSB with me. She went to USC for grad school as well, but then she ended up also getting her PhD at Pepperdine. So she has a very long experience of going to school back to back to back. And it has provided her with a unique experience. So she posts all about it, all things resources, everything you need to know about grad school, getting in, once you're in, grad school fatigue, all the things, also funding. And then there's the websites that I provided here that also are helpful. For PR resources, I think what's helpful for PR is keeping up with Google Trends and Google search. And I think that I forgot a word there, but yeah, basically just using Google Search Console and Google Trends for looking up what's going on in the world, what are reporters really writing about right now. And that's important to know, because when you're pitching something, you want to know if they're going to care about it, because if they aren't writing about it now, they won't care about it. And you kind of can also make story angles based on the way that they write and the way that everyone is writing right now. You can kind of make them want to write about what you want them to. And then Help a Reporter Out is Haro. It's a free forum thing where reporters will ask for certain experts in certain areas. So they'll say something like, I need an expert in finance to explain what this recession means for millennials. And that's they'll put an email there that you can respond to, and you can put a pitch to why your founder, for example, for me, it'd be like, my founder could speak about this because he is a millennial and he's, and you can kind of make a pitch based on that Haro that's there. And they can decide whether or not to feature you in the story. And it's free. So that's why that's a good one. And then I added a link that adds more free resources for doing PR on your own, which it's really helpful, just because sometimes it's good to know those methods before you go into an agency or something, because they'll be surprised that you already know how to create a pitch like that and already know how the resources that they may be doing, that you would already kind of have that upper hand. And for me, this is just one podcast, but I like listening to daily news podcasts from different angles, just to kind of learn about what's going on and kind of how people are perceiving it, because that also can help you craft a pretty great pitch, because you can make people realize how much the public cares about something. Like you can say it, oh, this is kind of a sentiment that I've heard about in 3 different publications. You should, like, I haven't seen that you wrote about it yet. I'm wondering if you have an opinion on this topic, and kind of put yourself into the topic to make them care about it. So I listened to Today Explained by Vox, as well as What a Day on Crooked Media. And there's like a whole bunch of podcasts that I listen to on a daily basis, just to kind of get the overall sentiment about the news and about the headlines, so that I have a better perspective when I'm making pitches. And then for digital marketing purposes, here's a few tools that I like to use. I was telling the rest of the council about Figma, which is great for design, and for students, I think it's free as well. Basically, it's like a free version of Adobe, like Photoshop, InDesign, all of those things combined, and you can also collaborate. So it's a great way to not only design, but also if you're working on a team or even in class projects, it's a good way you guys can work together. Everyone knows about Canva. That's like a very simple, easy to use way to not only, like, from creating slides to creating social media content. You can even plan social media now, because they had that update where you can actually plan out when it's going to post. So I think Canva is always great. Notion, I like to use to organize all things in my life as well as work. So you can do a personal and you can do a work one, but you can organize things and document things that are way more organized. And you can use it for school as well, because I didn't use it then. I don't even know if Notion was out then, but I've seen lots of TikToks and different things explaining on how you can use it for note taking as well. So if you haven't already used Notion, it's a great way to do that. And lastly, to do roadmap planning, which I'm doing right now since 2023 is coming up. All I'm doing is literally saying what we're going to be doing every single day in terms of comms, PR, all those things for Q1, Q2. And I use Mural as a roadmap planner. So it's very visual. You can literally put pictures on there. You could put articles on there, videos. You can kind of just make it more visual in a line of like everything that's going to happen month to month in the next year. And you can share that with your team and they can collaborate on it as well. So I love Mural because you can do multiple projects like that. Anything that's a map, a mind map, any of those planning, brainstorming, it's a good place to put all those thoughts. So that's a lot, and the most I've talked in a row and so long. So please let me know if you have questions, call outs, anything. Yeah, that's.
I have a question, Shamara. Are those 4 digital marketing resources? Are those software applications or are they apps on your phone?
They're like online websites as well as apps on your phone. So you can find them by just putting them in the browser. The links there go straight to the website. So it's just they're free tools. They're basically, all of them are free. They have premium features, but you can at least get on them for free. But there's app versions and there's websites. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ron, are we going to have this PowerPoint available to give to the participants so that they can use these hyperlinks?
Of course, and Shamara has already sent it to me, and I'm all ready to post it once the video goes up.
Okay, wonderful.
Does anyone have any more questions? Drop it in the chat or come off video.
Oh, I think there's a question in the chat. Let me see.
Okay, here I can read it for you, Shamara, just so that. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and helpful resources with us. As it is currently past 3 for choosing class, I'd like to know more about in terms of academics. Do you have any specific courses under the communication or writing department that you feel prepared you a lot for your first job or internship? Thank you, Evelyn.
Yeah, for specific courses, I think we were talking about, this question was definitely going to come up. Where's I can't see my screen. Oh, there we go. I'll just stop sharing now. But in terms of courses, Comm at UCSB, I feel like I actually kind of had a couple different classes I liked that weren't Comm as well. So I actually really liked psychology in general because there was a lot of persuasive communications that I learned from psychology. In comms, I'm trying to remember, like, which ones I like think applied to now the most. I also did the technology management program, which I forgot to mention, but that actually was very applicable to what I'm doing now, not only because it's tech, but because they had a PR course, as well as a business course. And I think knowing a little bit of both of those things helped me in my current position, but also it was the one course at UCSB I can say was like super specific to building out a PR plan, building out a comms plan, and kind of like acting like you're doing it for a company. So those were super helpful. The writing department, I feel like I took a lot of writing that was creative, and that might have been by choice. I don't know, but so I really can't help on that front. I just think it was like really fun to do those. But the TMP program did that like super applicable like business. You have to create companies and then you have to market them, and you kind of get to do like a Shark Tank situation. I feel like it was a very good industry knowledge type of class. So if you are interested in PR at all, I would say try at least that one course. You don't have to do the whole program. You can just do the course.
All right, guys, don't be shy. We have Shamara here with us. So any final questions, you can chat it, you can throw it out.
I think Ron has the question.
Looks like Ron has one.
I always have
Oh, we
questions.
have Jessica was going to come on with a question.
Go ahead, Jessica.
I'm sorry, I first want to apologize for the abrupt way I came in. And then the other question I had was kind of going back to when you first started your LLC and kind of what inspired you kind of start that, and kind of just the roadblocks and obstacles you faced along the way of it. I know you discontinued it, but do you have any teachings from it? Just because that is something I'm hoping to kind of start one day, or kind of some sort of like small agency for myself. So just wanted your feedback and also your insight on it.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. I think honestly, I do think it's a great idea I think working for yourself in a climate like what we're in now has just become a better idea in general. And sometimes I still think about it when I look at my paychecks and the taxes, but you know, it's a whole different side of things. But the reason I did it originally was because I was getting a lot of contract work in general, even when they would be full-time. They were doing things that were saying like, oh, you're going to be on an I-99, or, you know, it's not going to be like, you're going to still be seen as a consultant. So, or 1099, sorry. So a lot of the positions for me it made more sense to be an LLC than to go as an individual, because I would have been paying like crazy taxes. And my family, they're very accounting and tax people. So the first thing that they told me to do was like, to avoid all of that, make an LLC. It's not that hard. It sounds crazy. You're starting a business on your own, but since they're paying you that way, all you have to tell them is pay your LLC instead. And it'll just save you. So that's really the truth on why it started. But then I was like, maybe I should just keep this, because eventually, like, I still have an LLC technically, and eventually I may just want to work on my own completely, because I do think you can work with brands you actually believe in and care about, as opposed to like agencies where you may end up working for some people you always didn't like, or you find out that the founder is crazy. These days you see that a lot, or they're just doing things unethically, and you're kind of already in a contract with them. You have a job, you don't want to lose your job, so you start to do the work for them, but you just feel like you're a little bogged down with clients you don't even have control over. Whereas with the LLC and with your own agency, you can always choose to not work for someone, or pick out people you want to work for and tell them why you should work for it, like why they should hire you, and you kind of take that control back. So I do think it's still something I'm eventually going to explore. Ultra is a brand I really believe in, and it's probably a brand I would have as a client anyways. So that's why I'm staying. But I do think it's a good route if you want to take control of your career and what clients you work with. I do suggest that you maybe work with either, if it's an agency or something at first, so you can at least get that first experience, because it is hard to just kind of convince people to work with you without like that portfolio, just because they're going to be like, who have you worked with? And, you know, they want to trust that you're going to be able to bring those results and stuff like that as well.
That was great feedback. That was like super helpful. And also just a follow-up question on that, in terms of, you mentioned a portfolio, kind of what I guess, what resources did you use to kind of create that portfolio? You went over just like showing the metrics and kind of just insight. I am a post-grad student and I do agency work right now. So I'm kind of developing that experience and really like kind of confused on whether I want to go get my master's or do I want to keep working. And so kind of taking time to figure that out. But now, just curious, like, did you make a portfolio on Canva or was it like a website portfolio? I don't find the need to create a website, but also, there's so many ways you can go about it.
Yeah, I don't think you do PR specifically, right?
I do digital marketing. So I do a lot of like advertising, social media, things like that. So I'm pretty familiar with that. But then PR and copywriting is also just kind of another area that I'm hoping to step into in the future, if that allows.
Yeah, definitely. I think website, you don't have to, right? You don't need a website. I think graphic designers use websites and photographers use websites just because that's like a way easier way to hold those files that are super large. But I do think like Canva could work if you want to make like a full, like a slide deck works sometimes, like a really good slide deck. If you're just showing different examples of what you've done, advertisements you've done, like kind of how I showed that ad expression, you can show things like that. And the performance of them, you can literally put in the description right underneath the ad, like kind of like how it performed, where it showed up, who you pitched it to, all those things, like they would want to see those things. And a slideshow is a very easy way to show it all at once, as well as maybe put like a picture of yourself in your bio in the first part of it. So then it could be a little more fun as well. So I think that's easy, and Canva makes it super easy now. For me, it was a lot of writing samples because I started off heavily in PR. So it was like a lot of pitches. And then I was showing like also news that I've gotten and publications that actually wrote about the people that I pitched. So that was kind of my portfolio, which didn't have to be anything fancy. Like I literally just sent them a lot of the articles that I've gotten and secured. And then like the pitches that went with those. So that was kind of how I did my portfolio.
Okay. I guess we'll close this event then. And we really want to thank you, Shamara, for sharing all this amazing expertise and your story. And we will certainly be sharing the resources for everybody. And those are fantastic. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. We'll see you all next month.